Greetings, NABJ family. I know you're eager to join today's webinar, but let me steal just a few seconds of your time. According to a recent NABJ survey, more than 50% of our members have either lost their jobs, been furloughed, taken pay cuts, or had their hours cut. These are smart, dedicated Black journalists. This is our family. NABJ just launched a COVID-19 relief fund to help members facing economic hardship. If you can, we're asking you to donate so we can offer as many grants as possible. But if you need the help, don't hesitate to apply. You'll find the link at nabj.org. Enjoy your webinar. Thank you for listening.
Hi, everybody. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Hi, well, welcome, NABJ. My name is Gil Robertson. I am a journalist and the president of the African American Film Critics Association. This webinar was thought of by the leader of our A&E Arts Entertainment panel, Kelly Carter. And she asked if she assembled us all and asked me to moderate. So it's great seeing you guys out there in Cyberland, and it's certainly great speaking to three of my colleagues, three of my A&E entertainment journalist colleagues, to talk about COVID and how they are navigating through all of that. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get this going. Let's start with the first person that I see is Courtney. So I'm going to start with you, Courtney, but I want all three of you ladies to answer, to speak to what has this experience been like?
That's not broad at all. I think this experience has been certainly one that's full of lessons, full of learning, and full of adjusting in ways that I don't think that I've had to in my career for quite some time. But it's also been exciting. You know, there are so many stories to tell. There are a lot more eyes and ears waiting to hear them. And I think it's a time that we can stretch ourselves to be innovative and creative and, you know, help everyone push through this.
Sylvia, you're in New York, so I mean, your experience has been a lot different than people in other parts of the country. I mean, what has it been like? How have you, what has it been like just as a woman, as a human being?
As a resident, yeah. I mean, it's been, like I said to you, like New York is closed. Like I've lived here for 8 years, but I'm from New Jersey, so I'm pretty used to the area, and I've never seen it like this. And I actually literally have not left my apartment since March 7th, 8th. And I think I've been getting everything delivered just because the numbers are so high in New York City that I don't feel safe going to the grocery store. And I have asthma, so I'm being super cautious. So everything's been coming to me. I've maybe made 2 emergency runs to my bodega literally on the corner. And that's it. Like the last time I did that was probably a month ago. So I am in the house, like LL Cool J in the house. And it has been a very interesting time to, you know, be still and kind of just reflect and strategize. And also it's been amazing to see how much can be done from home if I had to. Like, I think just that scenario, and even just realizing that I've, you know, and I know we'll get into this, but I've like produced segments, I've launched a podcast, I've done, you know, written stories all from my bedroom in my apartment. That's kind of unfathomable to me. But just as a human, it's been really interesting to have to just shut out all of the outside parts of life and this industry, like no events, no screenings, no networking, and all of that part of being in New York and seeing each other. It's been really, you know, I think it's been a nice reset to an extent, but it's also been pretty tricky to adjust to, for sure.
And Miss Gia, I know that you live in New York as well, but you are currently within the safety of your family in DC.
Yes.
Talk about your experiences with this.
Absolutely. So for me, when I left New York, it was like March 18th. And I thought I was going to be home for 2 weeks. So I have like a little carry-on bag with like 2 weeks worth of stuff. I ended up ordering things online just because I just don't know what the travel is like back to New York right now. I've had friends who've gone back and forth and who have said like they've checked to make sure at certain turnpike stops if you have proof of residency there. So I'm like, okay, let me take my time. But it was quite an adjustment. This feels like high school again. Like I'm with my parents and my sister all the time. And at first I was like, okay, this is too much. But now I'm like, just trying to take it day by day and giving myself grace. If I don't feel like being creative one day, I let myself rest. And if I do feel like being creative, I go for it. And so I'm just trying to balance all of the things that are happening internally and externally as we are in the midst of a global pandemic. So it's quite a feat, but dealing with it day by day.
So now each of you, again, professionally speaking, what type of challenges have you had to overcome in order to continue to do your work? Sylvia, why don't we start with you first?
It's been a it's been a road of challenges and solves. So initially at first when the lockdown hit, I was producing on A&E DM, which is a Twitter show on BuzzFeed, that BuzzFeed platform, our morning show. And we had gone from live to segmented, to doing pre-taping segments and putting them out on social media that way right before this hit. And then we had to adjust to doing it on Zoom. We were actually one of the first digital shows to immediately, like that first week, do celebrity interviews on Zoom, produce them. As producers, we had to figure out how to script it in a way where it's like, I don't know how much people want to hear about celebrity content right now when they're dealing with all of this stuff, and just kind of like, how do we bring COVID into the conversation naturally? Dealing with questions about talking to celebrities about how they're coping with it, and like production shutting down. Like I remember our interview with Taraji P. Henson, just talking to her about how Empire got shut down right before they were able to film their series finale, and just kind of how she didn't even know what it was going to be, and how she's been doing her own hair and makeup and glam and sent the housekeeper home, and like celebrities are like, it's us and our kids, and we're trying to figure all that out. And so that was essentially the first challenge, was how do we do a remote show? But thanks to like I remember one of our producers set up a whole control room in his basement, and kind of was like how we were doing all the signals out of, and it was really interesting. And then that show, and ended up having, we did that for maybe a month and a half, and ended up having to wrap that because the funding, like this is hitting everybody across the board. So Twitter really pulled a lot of its affiliate funding for stuff like that. So we had to wrap that show. And then then the new challenge became, dealing with company layoffs and company furloughs, and like, not knowing when it's going to be your turn and when you're going to get hit. And so for me, I was really thankful that I had other things happening outside of BuzzFeed. I just recently, like during this pandemic, also happened while we were trying to launch my podcast with Netflix, Strong Black Lead. Okay, now listen, we launched and did our first episode 2 weeks ago, and we had to do it all during the pandemic. So instead of being able to do our promotional photo shoot for this podcast that we've been planning for 6 months, we had to figure out a new creative way, and we went with cartoon animation. And thankfully, Netflix had the budget to like make cartoon versions of us and put the audio that way, so we can kind of, get creative about how to promote and do social media clips. Our production company sent us all the equipment. I literally have a podcast studio in my home, mics, booms, all of that. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but like we keep trying to find ways to meet them. And I think what you'll hear from all of us is the more things you have going on, the better, because stuff is getting pulled left and right. That's been my experience. And I've just been glad to have other things to fall back on, multiple streams of income in that kind of way.
And G, I noticed that you've been doing a lot of YouTube interviews, etc. It's like you haven't really missed a beat. I mean, every time you look up, you're doing something else. You're engaging with talent and with the issues and themes of the day. So talk about that.
Right. I mean, so that YouTube interview that I just shot. I launched a show called Give You the Game, probably at the end of last year. And Debbie Allen was my first guest, and she's been just a icon for me for so many years. But she is also, I went to her dance school in the summers, and she was like, I'm not going to be on camera. So, and I said, okay, I'll take this podcast. So when I relaunched it with the second episode, it was with Michael Jordan's daughter, Jasmine Jordan, and we had filmed that during All-Star. So luckily, it gave me the time to really sit and like think about what I would want this to look like as a video production. I booked everything. I got all the editors and producers together. So it was my first time stepping from behind like journalism talent only to like production and making sure that the entire set ran the way I wanted to, which has been really awesome. And so that was great. And luckily all the events that I had lined up were obviously canceled, but a lot of the people who work with those different accounts and brands were able to figure out, again, how to do everything virtually. Thank God for Instagram and Instagram Live, because that has become a stream of income for me. And so, you know, I've just been very open to the different virtual ways I can continue to host and continue to interview people. And a lot of the things are just ways to stay creative on the days that I feel like I have the energy to do so. So thankfully the internet, you know, is here. I can't imagine what any of this would be like if we did not have the internet. And it's been a saving grace, I think, for a lot of us in entertainment media who still want to work and honestly still needs work. This is our only way to have income. So for me, that's been a very big blessing, just continually using and utilizing the things that are actually in my toolbox.
I know that's been one of my questions. One of my like greatest fears going through all of this is like, what if the internet stopped working? What if the cable went out? So yeah.
Very scary. Yeah, I did something with UMC. Farrah is actually in here. I did something with UMC like a few weeks ago to film for film festivals and things like that. And I was just like, we are literally at the helm of this moment where the internet is a saving grace. So I'm just excited to see what else can happen, because I feel like people are being so creative. I feel like now is going to be the time where we're going to see a whole different new vibe of content. So we'll see.
And Courtney, you're out there in my hometown, Los Angeles. I'm in Atlanta right now, but you're in the center of everything in terms of entertainment, movies and film. What has it been like for you? And you're also at, you know, one of our leading urban outlets at the Griot. So what has that been like, having to, you know, interface with journalists who might be dealing with different types of circumstances in different places, you know, with the total shutdown of movie theaters and other events that certainly drive your bottom line as an entertainment editor?
Absolutely. It's definitely been so much adjustment. And, you know, being at the Griot has been a gift, because fortunately we've been able to continue business as usual, even growing. You know, we've launched a podcast during this pandemic, and that was a learning curve for me, because I'm used to either doing on-camera work where I'm sitting there talking to a celebrity one-on-one, or having long lead editorial where I have a lot of time to digest what they're saying and editorialize it and really tell a story. And what we're finding is that pivoting to me talking to a celebrity on the phone might be exactly what goes into the podcast, and building stories around that that are relevant not only to those people who are looking to us to be entertained, but who are also having to digest a lot of this hard news that we're being hit with, you know, moment to moment. So getting the celebrities to a place where they can feel safe enough to be vulnerable about, you know, not just all the great projects they're pressing on with, but how they're really coping, you know, mental health wise, how they're dealing with their families, how they're dealing with the uncertainty of their financial futures, has been really fun to do, but it has certainly been a challenge. And I'd say for me, being the entertainment director, I've been, you know, talking to so many of our fellow journalists who have lost their jobs, and they're looking, you know, to us to see where they can contribute. So finding places and ways to utilize as many, you know, of my peers as I can right now is certainly a priority.
So what would the best piece of advice you would offer some of our colleagues out there who aren't maybe as established, who aren't plugged in? How can they go about remaining connected with the industry? Of course, at AFCA, for our members, we have a virtual roundtable series, which has allowed a number of our members to connect with talent as they are, promoting their projects. But, unless you're a member, in that case of our group, that opportunity is not necessarily available to you. So if you're an independent journalist in Chicago or Texas or wherever you might be, what would be your advice? Anyone who wants to take it can. Sylvia?
I think, for me, especially because my background is not in freelance. I think for me, I think that's something that a lot of us are transitioning into during this time. I think for me, what has been my saving grace has been, I'm working for a company, but I've also been making sure we've been working my other contacts outside of that company for time so that I'm not fully dependent on one source. So I think if you're an independent journalist, my advice to you would be to work as many angles as you can and to be pitching to as many places as you can, but also understanding that newsrooms are decreasing. So the amount of the response time is going to be slower. More pitches are going to be declined because of budgets. And the reality is that this is about to be a rough time for media. It's kind of hard to sugarcoat it. It really is. And I think for a lot of us, but people are so hungry for content right now. And we have such the ability to, in the way that you see people doing on IG Live and on Twitter Live and on Facebook Live and all of these places that we are now, you can broadcast something on your own. I really would suggest taking this time of being home to create something. Now is the time to create something if you have the energy. Because I also understand the other side of it. There's a whole pandemic going on, and it's drained a lot of people's creative juices. I was getting tired of everybody telling me to write a book right now. I'm tired. I'm trying. There's an existential crisis happening outside. I don't know if I can write a book during this. But if you need to create something and build an audience, the audience is there now. We were when we launched this podcast, obviously we had Netflix as a platform, so we weren't concerned about getting listeners, but we weren't sure doing it during this time if that was how we wanted to do it. But the amount of listeners and the response and how engaged people are to things now, I can say as somebody who's launched things throughout regular times, it's so much more right now. There are people out there who are hungry for content because they're home, they're bored, and they're all taking in things that we as creatives do. So I think my advice to you is to start on your own platform and start building your platform now, because people are very engaged. So if you can't pitch that blog, if you can't get Courtney to get your attention at the Griot, you know what I mean? Start, post it on Medium, or, there's or Zora or all these other places, or get on that IG Live. If you got that one celebrity connection, get on IG Live with them and start a broadcast, you know what I mean? And just do it as you can, but it's going to definitely be an adjustment for a lot of us.
I mean, Courtney, what is it like? Because, of course, with ad revenues being down, with promotional budgets, excuse me, not necessarily being in use because shows the same level of output has been, greatly minimized, excuse me. How are you navigating that in terms of your freelance budget, your ability to hire people? I mean, a lot of folks, as we see every night on the news, are experiencing hardship, trying to even eat. So in what ways do you have a system in place to help people? What's your selection process like for your freelancers?
Lately I find myself a lot more open to opinion pieces, and the entertainment doesn't necessarily have to be as timely as it usually does, because usually we've got, a set amount of hours or a set amount of space to dedicate to across projects that are premiering yesterday, today, or tomorrow. And that's what we're working with, and that's what we're pointing people to pay attention to. And now we've got people at home consuming content that might have come out 3 years ago that they're just catching on to and is relevant or could be relevant now. And the question is, when you've got nothing but time and nothing but, you know, premium networks giving you their content for free, so now everyone has access, what are they choosing to watch and why? And some of that has been surprising. I have never had so many conversations about The Handmaid's Tale as I have in, you know, the past few weeks. And I find myself really wondering, like, are people watching that show right now? Are they revisiting it? And what do they have to say about it? Because I think there's a lot of little gems that sometimes we wish we could cover and we just don't have time or we just don't have the manpower. And as far as your question about budget, I mean, absolutely, you know, advertisers are scaling back, but at the same time, you can manipulate some of your costs. You know, I don't have to hire a cameraman and a producer and a sound guy and a video editor to come shoot interviews with me in our studio in Culver City. I can produce all of that via Zoom for free and allocate those dollars to maybe publishing 3 more stories from freelancers this week.
You know, the one thing that I've realized is how essential our work is as journalists who cover entertainment. I mean, during such a critical time, you know, entertainment is the way that people are getting through, or the way that people are making sense out of all of this. Gia, what are your thoughts about the value that, as entertainment journalists, that we offer people who might be having some mental health challenges due to being, you know, stuck at home, having their world become so small?
Right, right. Entertainment has always provided an escape from daily life. And I think at this moment, there are so many reasons why people will need that escape. Like Courtney was saying, people are watching shows. I've watched Love Jones like 4 times. Like there are just so many things that I've revisited. 1, because I love that movie, but 2, just because I have a little bit more time to sit and be in those spaces and not worry about certain being on time for events and things like that. Like I'm just here. So I think a lot of people are able to really see like, okay, if there's an actress and I want to know how she feels, you can go to her Instagram. If there's a person on Twitter that really understands how these stories are evolving, even though we don't have sets open, you can go to their pages as well. I think people are looking to entertainers. And I like to see the different ways that people are tuning into so many different outlets. Like my friend, our friend Danielle Young has started a new show on Instagram Live where she literally gets in front of these actors and creators like Lena Waithe, like Lisa Ray, like so many people who don't usually get those opportunities to just talk for an hour. She has her show called Real Quick. So I think at this point, entertainment, like you said, is going to be a saving grace for so many people. So if you can figure out something that you feel will be relatable and content that people will love to get to be a part of, I say create it. Like there's no gatekeeper now as far as you using your own platform. So if there's something that you like and you want to talk about it and you can film it and post it on YouTube or IGTV, make it happen, because there's no reason to wait at this point.
You know, this hour went by so quickly.
An hour? It's an hour?
No, it's 6:30. Okay,
Oh, okay.
no, it's
Yeah, we have
7:00.
till
Okay.
7:30.
No, at 7:30. I'm like going, did we start at 6?
I was like,
Um, no. Where do you think, you know, the challenge of this situation is so far reaching and is so, my God, I mean, you know, brunch at the Four Seasons or Soho House, you know, a simple coffee, you know, with a friend. I mean, everything, things that we took for granted, you know, premieres, listening parties, just engagement. All of that the idea of that now seems like a distant memory. Like it seems like something that will never, ever happen again, unless obviously there's a cure or an effective treatment, therapy for this. I mean, so let's talk about, you know, post-pandemic. What are our thoughts about where do you think this thing is taking us? And more importantly, what do we hope to gain from this? Because I can't imagine that we're being taken through these circumstances without there being some sort of very important lesson that we're to bring with us as we move forward. Sylvia?
I think I think it's definitely, I think this time, especially for journalists who, if you've been like me and I've always worked for a company my whole career, I think this is the moment where you learn that I don't know if that's really the future of journalism anymore. You know, I think that this is something where it's going to, a lot of companies are going to take some time to recover from this. I know BuzzFeed, our CEO, has been very open about the fact that this is looking like a 2-year recession at this point, not as, you know, they're just hoping to only lose $20 million. To me, that's a crazy sentence. But like, I'm like, only, you know what I mean? Like, these are the real things that are happening. So I think a lot of my colleagues who were dependent on and had put all their eggs in one basket are learning that it's time to not do that. You know what I mean? For us, like, I think the time is coming to treat company, you know, brands and outlets like more like clients and yourself like the brand. And the company, it's like, okay, me, Sylvia Bell, who do I work? Like, I'm my thing. And then it's like, okay, so I'll do this freelance for Netflix, and I'll do this freelance for BuzzFeed, and I'll do this, you know, here or there where I can. And I'll also generate their attention by building my own platform and creating original content on my own. I think this time, like you said, is going to really set apart the people who are in entertainment for the glitz and glam and the people who are really here to tell stories and to push the culture forward, and who do care about that part of it. Because like you said, all the fancy premieres, all the little Soho House dinners, all them, like, all that cute stuff is gone. And so the question is, like, who's still here? Who's still here to create the content when it's just you in your home and the stories to tell? And I kind of, in that sense, I kind of like that it's filtering out people in that way, because I do think entertainment journalism gets a bad rep of, like, you know, just people who want to be a part of Hollywood in some way. And I think that this is definitely something that's going to set apart the determined. And I think that after, like you said, I don't see a back to normal. I think normal is going to look very different. Twitter today just announced that they're allowing certain employees to work from home forever. And like, that's a huge move. And I already know, like, tech companies like that usually set the trends for a lot of things. Like, I remember when Twitter was the first to play South by Southwest, then all the media companies did, or like, you know, work from home, that was the case too. So I am really curious to see what it looks like now that we are being removed from the centralized hubs of Hollywood, where it's like, you don't have to be in New York and you don't have to be in LA to do this job now. And I think this is an opportunity for a lot of local talent to rise up and show their talent. Because I do think that the talent rises up at the end of the day if you're constantly putting out the work. So I think that this might broaden the field and bring the people who really do care about the culture and entertainment and industry up to the top, because all that cute stuff is gone.
I have to agree with Sylvia for sure. I think that this is filtering out a lot of things when it comes to entertainment reporters and when it comes to entertainers. I mean, I think it says a lot when you've got people who make a living selling their talent to us, and like, do they really want to share it when it's not necessarily adding to their bottom line? When they're entertainers who get out there and are telling jokes just for the sake of telling jokes, or just for the sake of lifting the spirits of their fans, I think that says something a little different than when we get these candid moments from people who have a product to sell us right now. And so, you know, this pandemic has made me a fan of people that I might have overlooked before. And it's also kind of shown me that you don't necessarily have to have the huge machine behind you to be creating content that matters to people and can move the needle as far as, you know, how people are feeling. And I think also, to Sylvia's point, at least for me, you know, I've only ever covered entertainment. So, you know, it's been years of trying to find that balance of attending events and consuming the content and offering my opinion and doing the interviews. And this kind of feels like a glimpse of showing me some of the things that I don't necessarily have to do, or things that I can delegate, you know, to further contribute to work-life balance. If any of you are parents like I am, that's a huge challenge. Working from home when you have children is different in a pandemic, but I think the lessons we're having to learn right now can help us in our careers going forward for sure.
Now, Gia, under normal circumstances, we take publicists out for coffee or drinks, or network at industry activities. How do we maintain those ties? How do we cultivate those relationships that are going to allow careers to move forward and to rise?
Absolutely. I think it's a two-part, well, several parts, but the two main parts that I'll mention today is obviously social media has a major impact on how you move in the industry these days. I absolutely can't stand that that's a fact, but I think in entertainment, a part of that drive and that reason why people are entertained by what you do as a reporter and as a journalist also takes it plays a very important role. So if you are a person that's saying that you want to be, a talk show host, or you want to set up a way that you can become a producer, if you're saying that and the things that you're sharing and you're posting and your work reflects that, then the people around you will think of you at the top of their decision-making, casting, things like that, opportunities, because they know that's what you want to do. So if you are a person who wants to be an entertainment reporter and hasn't really covered entertainment and shared that on social media, it might actually work against you, because when people look you up, they should be able to see your work as well. And so I definitely say creating a narrative for yourself, for your own brand and where you want to go is really, really important. And then also being genuine. If you follow the people that you like, and there are people you want to work with, and there are certain companies that you want to be aligned with, everyone's email is pretty much figure outable. Like, you can look up a first and last name, or if you have one email at a company, you pretty much have all the emails at that company. So if you're a person who's strategic like that, look at a show, a producer that they might not be there, but reaching out and cold emailing always works. And now this is a good time to get together your online portfolio and your resume and the things that you want to the things that we never have to do because we have way too much time running around. We now have time to do now that we're still. So I definitely say just take time to sit down and really plan out what your website should look like, what you want your reel to look like. If you're an on-air person, figure out if you have work from the last 4 years that you haven't updated, figure that out. So it's a two-part of staying ready and getting ready, so you can absolutely flourish should outside open up, which I hope it doesn't anytime soon, but should it open up, there are certain goals that I think everyone should have just as far as creating and updating your portfolios as well.
One of the questions that have been consistent, we've received a number of them. This version of it is from Maya Reese, and she's currently a news reporter in a small market, but wants to make the transition from news to entertainment. So what's some of the advice that you would give to people who are trying to make that move? Courtney, we'll start with you.
Let me unmute myself. I think playing to your strengths is always important, and if you're passionate about a movie, a film, a book you read, an experience that you had, now's the time that people are listening more than ever. And, I'm certainly paying attention more to how art is making people feel and how it's impacting their actual lives, their psyche, their mental health right now. And what better way to show that than to share your reaction to Little Fires Everywhere, or like we talked about before, maybe something that no one else is talking about. Like maybe you revisit why this, the very first episode of Insecure changed you. I think that's a way to showcase your talent now. And like Gia was saying, really building up your social media to showcase what your talents are. Interview someone that's not a celebrity about the movie that you just saw. Really be creative. Start a story that has to do with the story we already know and give it a different ending. I love that stuff. Fan fiction to me says so much about how someone's brain could work and what they stand to create. And we've got nothing but time. So why not just try it, throw it up against the wall, and see what happens.
Sylvia, how do people
Um,
make the leap? How do people make the move? How do they get put on, girl?
I think, I getting put on is such an interesting phrase, but I do think that I agree with Courtney about, I think a lot of times people think they're waiting for somebody to put them on, and like the truth is you gotta put yourself on. And I think a lot of times people see us, and I don't know if they think like these things just fall in our laps, but I know I got a deck. I know Gia got a deck. I know we email those decks to people to pitch ourselves for certain things. It's not just happening. We are putting the ideas for these things into people's minds, but also we are demonstrating. I think that social media is such a great equalizer in the sense that it's like, if I'm tweeting about The Last Dance and you're tweeting about The Last Dance and I see you during that hashtag, I don't care how many followers you have. If you're saying something insightful, I think in a lot of times, like whether it's the Real Housewives of Atlanta reunion or Insecure, like Courtney brought up, there's so many shows that are happening in real time that are bringing, whether it's verses, like when we're sharing and being so creative about the new versus battle that keeps happening. I've seen so many creatives find interesting ways to get on top of that, whether it's making playlists or like, doing pre-parties for it or whatever. I think there's just a lot of opportunity to write and about TV, movie, music right now that doesn't necessarily involve you having to know a publicist who can get you an interview with a celebrity. Because a lot of times I personally enjoy reading. I would rather read about how the last episode of Insecure triggered you because of the Mollies and Aces in your life as a Black woman than I would six interviews with Yvonne Orji about it, or Issa Rae about it. Like we have those, but these also are perspectives that matter, that you can do from anywhere. And if this work is good, like I think it really does find its way on social media. So I do think it's about capitalizing on how you can get people's attention. And right now that the main way to do that is social media. So use those hashtags, hop on those cultural moments. I know there's some Sundays where I would like to just sleep in. Just go to sleep early. But every Sunday I know I got to be there to tweet because Black Twitter about to be there, and it's about to be, it's a time to get recognized for things. Now, a lot of the opportunities I get in my email box come from that sense. But I also think small things that people don't think to do is your email address in your bios on social media. Like there's been times where I've tried to get in touch with people and I can't find one way to do it. And I'm like, make sure that information is out there so that if people are seeing you, that, they're able to get in contact with you. But putting yourself on is really about creating the content, making it good, and just keep trying.
Gia, you want to add?
They pretty much said everything. I think you just, again, have to be smart. I think what this time offers that is very special is that everyone is on pause. So if you can sit down and actually write down and map out the organizations that you want to work with, the publications that you see yourself at in the future or right now, that's what you're pitching, figure out how to create work that aligns with what the work that they're trying to look for as well. And I think just knowing where you want your brand to go and where you want your work to be is really important in how you move in this industry, because every opportunity isn't going to be for you. But if there's an opportunity that you really, really want, there's a way to fine tune your work and your brand so that those people know you're a shoo-in for those opportunities.
Now, one of our colleagues, Wilson Morales, has reached out with a question about how do we connect with people whose current projects we want to help support? How do we connect with them, especially if they're not tied to a big studio or distributor? But do they reach out to the studios, the publicists, or should they try to connect with them through social media? What would be your course of action? And Courtney, why don't you start with this one, particularly for those independent projects, that don't have the backing of, one of the big brands out there, big media companies.
Yeah, I think doing your research first and foremost on social media, for sure. So many of these artists are kind of managing their own careers right now. But also, the publicists are at home too. They're missing a lot of their machinery, a lot of their backing, a lot of their bells and whistles that they use to get to us on a regular basis. They're missing that too. And I think that people will find that publicity teams are a lot more open to kind of invite writers that they don't necessarily have established relationships with in to tell a unique story, and realizes that the reach right now is, could be a lot more organic than usual. And so I would say, don't feel so intimidated that because you don't know this publicist personally, you can't email them. They have a job to do too, and their job is harder right now. And the more eager you are to tell a unique story and share with them how you can get that messaging out, the more likely they are to work with you and give you a shot. I don't think the barriers to entry are as high as they are when there is an actual velvet rope cutting people off from the event that we all have invitations to. We're all watching this on Zoom. We're all behind our laptops. We're all, at the will of seeing the content when it's finally streaming. So in that sense, I think that the starting blocks have evened out a little bit right now.
Ladies, what would you say are the best platforms for a person to show their work, either video or either print? I know one of you mentioned earlier today, Medium. That's a good place to maybe post some of your work. But many people have asked, how do they land, how do they get inside a platform, connect with a platform that would offer an opportunity, a potential opportunity for their work to be found, to be seen? Gia?
I know that Vanessa K. DeLuca, who was the former editor-in-chief at Essence Magazine, is over at Zora Mag now. And she tweeted at the beginning of the pandemic that she was looking for pitches and really looking for people to send in their work. So if you are, again, social media is a great platform. Everyone's got more time to tweet and share. If you go to these different websites and publications platforms, you will absolutely see, a lot of the times they link the writers right there to them. So I don't think there's anything wrong with reaching out to people who are accepting pitches. I also think if you are a person that, knows of Kelly Carter's incredible NABJ Arts and Entertainment email list, you know that everyone is always sending emails about needing a contact, or does anyone know someone from this studio, or does anyone know anybody here? And people are very open and willing to share within that, email group. So I definitely say if you're not a part of the A&E listserv, definitely become a part of that, because there are so many people on that email thread that have been working in this industry a really long time and don't mind helping. So just looking for community and places that will allow you, to be there, I think is a great place to start.
Talk about how NABJ has served as a community to help grow your career. I can recall many, many, many years ago when I went to I was invited, in fact, to an NABJ conference in Nashville, and was a little trepidatious about going, but decided to go. My dad urged me to go, and came out of that experience with some real valuable relationships at Black Enterprise and at BET, which at the time was just getting started. But let's talk about the community, the value that NABJ has as an incubator, as a pipeline for us.
I can definitely speak to that, because I guess I'm what they would call an ABJ baby. I joined an ABJ in college at North Carolina A&T. I saw some Aggies in the chat. I see y'all. Thanks for joining us. But I was chapter president at A&T. I was chapter president when I went to Columbia for grad school, journalism school for grad school. And I think that, those doors and those listservs, like, I see Kelly Carter, who's one of my mentors, in the chat right now telling you guys how to get added to the task force. So pay attention to the chat room right now. I think that those are things that are constantly slept on, and it's really is how you build the network. You know what I mean? For me, all of my I can track back, my career to NABJ, because when I was doing panels at Columbia, that's how I met Wendy Wilson. who was the news editor at Essence Magazine at the time. And she's the woman who gave me, I think, and she's at the Griot now, I believe. And she is the person who gave me my first internship. So like my first internship came through NABJ. And then, you know, also being part, meeting and networking and building genuine connections with the Black women in NABJ are really how I fostered opportunities for myself when it was time for me to go from Essence to BuzzFeed. When I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go next, you know, Corey Murray, who is still the entertainment director at Essence, was very much like, you talk to Kelly Carter, like she's at BuzzFeed now because she was at BuzzFeed then. And, you know, Kelly helped me, you know, get my resume to the right person. And that's how I ended up at BuzzFeed. And then, you know, being at BuzzFeed, I'm, you know, doing that for people who are at NABJ, who asked me at conferences when we would be there. And I think even when it comes to strong Black leads, like Jasmine Lawson is another Black woman who, you know, helped connect me to them. And I think it's really about that network of connection that happens through organizations like NABJ. And I know that now, because the convention is not happening, it's not as easy to get connected to these people in person. But I do agree with what Gia said about how many of the doorkeepers or the people who you want to who have the power positions in these companies, how many of them are you actually following? I think a lot of people sometimes are just like, I want to work at Essence, I want to work at BuzzFeed, but they don't. I can't count the amount of times people have told me they want to work at BuzzFeed, and I'm like, okay, what job opening did you see that you want to do? And they have no clue because they never even looked at the jobs page. And I'm like, how can you? You know, you have to do the research so you can find your way in the door. Like I stalked Wendy Wilson. She can tell you. I was like, I'm gonna find out how I could meet the woman who was running the intern program at Essence, because I knew who she was. I wasn't just talking about Essence like in a general sense, like in a way. So I think it's really about knowing the people who can give you these opportunities and not just saying, I need, I want, I like, I hope. Like if you're following Vanessa Luca, who was the editor-in-chief at Essence when I was there, you would know about the pitches that are happening, right? Find out who the Black women are, like who Yvonne behind Bitch Media, and like, you know, now you know that Courtney's editorial director at the Griot, and you know Kelly is at the Undefeated, and I can name these women by names, not just by the platforms that they work for. So I like would really suggest doing that research, because a lot of the time following those people, because a lot of the time the information you're looking for is there, but knowing them is key, because they're the ones who will help pass you, if the work is good, to people, you know, on down the line. And NABJ really was the genesis of that for me.
That was terrific, Sylvia. One of our NABJ success stories. Gia, would you like to add?
Yes, everything she said. Also, Kelly had a great shout out to Nikessa Moody, the new editorial director at Hollywood Reporter.
Yes!
Everything, okay? Everything and more. And I actually worked with this Nikessa years ago when I was just trying to get on within the Associated Press, and I worked with Alicia Quarles. But so my first job in the industry came from an NABJ career fair. I went there. I was a part of my NABJ chapter at Rutgers University. And then when I would go to the career fairs during the summers, my dad is also a journalist too, and he told me about NABJ early. So, you know, we would go and see what it was really like there for Black journalists to have a safe space. And so my first summer out of college, I went there. I gave my resume to this woman named Linda Coombs, who was at CBS Radio News. And my first job in the industry was an overnight desk associate in the CBS Radio newsroom from that meeting. And then from there, it was absolutely like Sylvia was saying, so many Black women who have been in these positions, and notice young women who are focused and determined and very talented. They like to put you on. Like if you are doing the work, people will absolutely see you. And so at this point, now it's easier for me, because if I don't know Nikessa personally, I'll know Kelly. If I don't know Kelly personally, then I'll know Corey. Like there's so many different ways, and this is absolutely a very small industry to work within. So I definitely say do great work. Be a good person, because if you make one person upset, 9 times out of 10, they won't recommend you for another job. So be very pristine with your reputation and the work you say you'll do. And NABJ again is a safe space. If you're not following NABJ on Twitter and Instagram, they're always putting out job opportunities literally daily. And so just staying in contact with this organization will absolutely help you with, if not community wise, then job wise.
Now, Courtney, our emails or our chat is blowing up from folks wanting to write for you. So as we begin to conclude, would you please share with our brothers and sisters at NABJ how they can connect with you socially and also perhaps query you regarding opportunities?
Definitely. I think I can share my email with everyone in attendance, and I would love to do that. And I really invite people to, pitch me stories, pitch me what you're reacting to, pitch me about how you're feeling or why this piece of art matters right now, why you totally disagree with what everyone else is saying. I think that right now, is a time that's ripe for debate, and the content that we have is really debatable, and especially now that like everybody has time to weigh in. So I think being original and being authentic with your opinion right now is so important, and I think authenticity is something that people are constantly looking for. I'm certainly looking for it. The other thing that I wanted to say is, again, let me echo the shout out to Wendy Wilson. She gave me my first interning job when I was in college at Medill. NABJ was a no-brainer to sign up for, and so many of the relationships that I still have, you come from those connections that I made, so long ago. And fostering those relationships are important, not just when you need a job from someone, not just when you need, a gig from someone. If you're following me on social media and, my kid just broke their arm in the middle of a pandemic, then, maybe don't hit me up for an opportunity before you ask me how my kid is. Or if you saw me burn my hair off, maybe you mention that like I'm an actual person going through this with you and not just, a gatekeeper to what you want to do. I also don't think people are interning enough anymore. If you offer to do a job for free and you do it beautifully, of course you're the first person I'm going to think about to hire when I have an opportunity. So don't be afraid to write something and then send it to me. What's the worst thing that can happen? I don't buy it, and you've got some notes from someone who's in a position to buy it next time. So, shoot your shot.
Gia, why don't you share with us how we can stay connected with you?
Sure. I'm social media at Gia Peppers. And my email is ohheygia@gmail.com. And those are the ways you can stay connected. Also YouTube at Gia Peppers, and Twitter at Gia Peppers. So everything at Gia Peppers.
And Sylvia, how do we stay connected with you?
I'm at Sylvia Obel on all platforms. And my email address is sylvia@sylviaobel.com. You could also reach out to me on my website, sylviaobel.com. Basically, if you search my name, it's not a common one. Thankfully, I'm lucky in that way. You will find me. So yeah, do that. And the one thing I would like to add to Courtney is, and the one thing I always made sure I love her point about writing the story first, because a lot of times it's kind of like, I want to write for the Griot. I would like to write for this. I would like to write for that. But then when Wendy asked me, okay, let me see 3 stories you have that would work for Essence, I had them because I wrote them already. So I think it's also about like, oh, I want to be a host. Show me your reel, or show me like you hosting. Even if it's you hosting your mama in the kitchen, I want to see that you can bring an interview out of her. You know what I mean? Like, make sure you have the work to back up what you're saying you want to do, because we can't just take you at your word value. A lot of people just can't take you at your word value.
Absolutely. And when it comes to getting those elusive first clips, what I did in the time before time is I wrote free stories for the local Black newspaper, which for me was the LA Sentinel. And those all gave me the clips that I needed to take to an Essence, take to a Black enterprise or Vibe. So those of you who are out there who are looking to, because they are going to ask you, let me see your work. And you're going to have to be able to show them that. and certainly Black newspapers, our extended family over at NNPA, you know, need eager writers to contribute to their tribute content their way. So that might be another place that you can perhaps gain some clips and some experience. For those of you who are looking to reach the African American Film Critics Association, you can find us on Instagram at AAFCA, on Twitter at the AFCA, THEAAFCA, and on Facebook at African American Film Critics Association. This has been an absolute thrill hosting one AFCA member and perhaps two others if I can convince these two ladies to join our ranks. But we love this. We love NABJ. I've been a member for, it's hard to believe, but over 20 years. And it's definitely an organization that, that is important and that needs the support and love from its members. So thank you all, and hope to see you guys once this baby's over. Good night, everyone.